things that happened simultaneously, which were recognized by the people who were original contributors. The first one was the transition from how universities dealt with their intellectual property. So universities are based on teaching and research, but those two processes generate ideas, and then those get converted into concepts, and ultimately some are capable of being transitioned into usable technologies. And so the university, that's an asset of the university. And originally there was a little bit of sensitivity about being too concerned with commercialization, but the Technion was very early on committed to finding ways for practical reasons and also for financial reasons to optimize this commercialization process. And that was in the end of the 1980s, around 1990. At the same time, there was a great emigration from Russia because of glasnost, the perestroika, which allowed people to leave Russia in the time of Gorbachev. And a great number of Russian Jews went to Israel at that time, almost 1 million immigrants from Russia, many of whom had very advanced degrees. But obviously they didn't have the ability to speak Hebrew because that was constrained in Russia. Anyhow, when they got to Israel, they had capabilities, but they didn't have opportunities to utilize their expertise. And so the Toronto community, in conjunction with the Technion, decided to build the first incubator program in Israel. And the TTT's main purpose at that time, when we raised about $1 million, which was a lot at the time for this type of purpose, helped to establish the first incubator in Israel. Now, you all know about the Startup Nation and how many companies have come out of Technion, particularly led by graduates of the Technion. But that first incubator is something that you're all connected with, so you should be very proud of that. Fortunately, because of some studies I'd done at school, I was able to be involved with that incubator program, and there were 5 original directors of that incubator in Israel, and I was asked to be one of them. So I was the only non-Israeli who was ever a director of the incubator program in Israel. In any case, fortunately, people in Toronto were very interested at that time to see these startup companies receive funding. We never had what they call a unicorn, but initially the Technion it wasn't sure who should be receiving the financial support. In some cases it was very prominent scientists, and they were a little less stringent on the commercializable potential, and so we didn't have all winners, but we did definitely help tremendously to create the momentum that you're all probably aware of. Just with respect to intellectual property. Intellectual property is, you're all familiar with real property. Intellectual property is a little bit different. It's an idea, and then there's many ways you can advance the idea, but the Technion has been very successful in recognizing the nucleation of ideas and development of those ideas from students and professors and alumni. So I'm sure the president will speak about that, but I think anybody who's supported Technion and particularly this fund can be proud that they did play a role. There's a Technion Nation, you've heard of Startup Nation. One of the outcomes of this kind of emphasis on commercialization is that and also one of the great achievements of the Technion is that more than 35 international corporations have their main research facilities in Israel. Now, that's a tribute to the quality of education in Israel, particularly technical education. And it's hard to believe that that could have happened in such a short time. It's really in the last 20 years. And there's 10 of those companies have acquired more than each 10 Israeli startup companies to incorporate them into the research facilities. So this is really a very dynamic and accelerating process. So just that's just an overview of your connection to what you'll be hearing from the president. But I'd also like to add something else about from generation to generation, because we have multi generations represented in this room. Obviously, the needs of the university changes over time, and the president will inform us of what those are. But we're at a milestone period of the Technion. It's their century, so they're having their century anniversary, and we'll hear about what some of the goals, the new goals and opportunities are, and hopefully we'll figure out what ways we want to try and support those new opportunities. So I'll end with that and introduce the president formally, because you came to hear him, not me. And Professor Sivan is a physicist by training. He worked at Bell Labs, and then he developed his research, which led to very many high recognitions, and obviously his advancement in the administration of the Technion. What's important is that those ideas were commercialized, and that gives Professor Sivan a very extensive understanding of the commercialization process. We'll hear more about that from his remarks, but I just want to say that he may speak a bit about his own research. That's up to him. Very unusual field of study, and Professor Sivan became president of Technion at a very challenging time, because the university has grown substantially. It has 3 campuses, but it's one of the few universities in the world that has 3 major campuses. Of course, you all know about the one in Haifa, but there's also one in New York, which is a joint operation with Cornell University on Roosevelt Island. And there's also a very, very large campus in China, which in today's political environment is a major challenge. I don't know if the president wants to even go there. I'm not talking about physically, I mean his commentary, but you have to realize that the job of president of Technion is a very important one to the state of Israel, and the load that President Sivan carries on his shoulders is a big one, but you can see he's still smiling, and he's doing a great job.
I'm away.
Yeah. So Professor Sivan, please, if you could.
Gary, thank you.